Long, long ago, in a peaceful kingdom where mornings began with gentle sunlight and evenings ended with the soft whisper of wine through the trees, there stood a large house nestled within a lush green garden. That house had once been filled with laughter, with warm family meals, and with a young girl who grew up wrapped in her parents' complete love. The girl once believed the world was a safe place. But when her father passed away forever, that sense of safety quietly left with him. A stepmother entered the house with her 2 daughters, and from that moment, the familiar atmosphere slowly changed. Words grew colder. Glances became more distant. And the girl, though still living in her own home, began to feel like a silent guest. Time passed, and she grew up within long days of endless work. Every morning, before the sunlight could even reach the windowsill, she was already awake. She lit the fire, swept the floors, washed clothes, cooked meals, and did all the tasks no one else wished to do. Ash clung to her dress, her hair, and gradually, people began to call her Cinderella. Yet her heart never hardened. Cinderella held on to a rare gentleness amid exhausting days. Each morning, she spoke softly to the birds, shared crumbs of bread with the little mice in the kitchen, and smiled when the wind passed through the garden carrying the familiar scent of flowers. In those very small moments, she found peace. Then one day, news spread across the kingdom like a gentle breeze. The royal family would host a grand ball. All young women were invited. In that house, the 2 stepsisters excitedly prepared dresses, jewelry, and sparkling dreams. Cinderella stood quietly outside the room, listening. Deep within her, a very small wish began to form, not a wish to change her life, but simply a wish to step outside, to see a world larger than this ash-covered home. Silently, she mended an old dress. Every stitch, every thread held hope. Her tiny friends helped her gather ribbons and smooth the folds of the fabric. In that moment, Cinderella felt warmth bloom in her heart. But the dream faded quickly. The dress was torn. She was left behind as the door closed. The house grew strangely silent. Cinderella sat down on the cold steps. For the first time in a very long while, she allowed herself to stop. She listened to herself. She wondered whether kindness was ever truly returned, whether patience and silence made the world gentler, or only made her invisible. She realized she was not weak because she felt sad. She was simply tired from having to be strong for too long. And as she looked up at the sky, where stars still shone quietly, Cinderella understood that hope was not believing everything would become good immediately. Hope was believing her heart had not yet closed. And in that moment, when she stopped resisting her sorrow, magic found her. Her fairy godmother appeared, gentle and warm like a soft breeze. There was no thunder, no lightning, only a tender light surrounding them. A pumpkin became a carriage. Little mice turned into horses. And Cinderella wore a gown that shimmered like starlight. Before she left, the fairy softly reminded her that the magic would fade when the clock struck midnight. The ball unfolded beneath warm golden light. When Cinderella entered, the music seemed to slow. The prince noticed her not because of her radiant appearance, but because of the quiet peace she carried within. They danced together without many words. Time passed as lightly as a breath. When the bells rang, Cinderella fled in haste, leaving behind a single glass slipper shining on the steps. The next day, the prince traveled across the kingdom with the slipper. When he reached the old house, the stepsisters tried it on but failed. Cinderella stepped forward, calm and gentle. The slipper fit her perfectly. Cinderella's new life began quietly. Not every day was a ball. But every morning, she awoke without fear. In the vast castle, she learned to live slowly. She walked through the gardens, listened to the wind, and understood that happiness was not about becoming someone else, but about finally being herself. Beside the prince, she learned that love does not erase the past, it gently holds it. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Cinderella remembered the old kitchen, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Those days had taught her how to love without hurting herself. After the early peaceful days in the castle, Cinderella gradually realized that happiness was not a fixed destination, but a gentle flow. It was not loud, not always dazzling, but always present in small, honest moments. There were mornings when she woke earlier than everyone else, not from duty, but because old habits still lingered within her. She opened the window, let sunlight into the room, and stood quietly for a while, simply breathing in the fresh air. In that moment, Cinderella understood that the past does not disappear when life changes. It simply stays, quietly, as part of who she is. She began spending time walking through the garden. Stone paths curved among tall trees where the wind whispered softly. There, Cinderella felt she could breathe more deeply. She realized that for a long time before, she had lived holding her breath invisibly, always careful, always afraid of making mistakes, always trying not to burden anyone. Now, she was learning to allow herself to exist without apology. With the prince, life was not always filled with words. There were evenings when they sat together in silence. But it was not an empty silence. It was the silence of safety. Cinderella came to understand that mature love does not need proof or display, it simply needs presence long enough for defenses to fall away. At times, she thought of her stepmother and stepsisters, not to blame them, nor to expect an apology. Those memories simply passed by, light as morning mist. Cinderella understood that forgiveness was not forgetting what had happened, but refusing to let it continue controlling her emotions. And in letting go, she felt lighter. One afternoon, Cinderella stepped into the grand kitchen of the castle. The scent of freshly baked bread filled the air. For a brief moment, she remembered the old kitchen where ashes once covered the floor. But instead of sadness, she smiled. She knew that those quiet days had taught her to cherish every simple thing in the present. Her new life did not turn Cinderella into someone else. It simply gave her space to become herself slowly and without pressure. She still loved quiet mornings, still cherished small things, still found joy in the ordinary. And she understood that true fairy tales were not about magic, but about someone who had walked through pain and still kept their gentleness. Night fell softly over the castle. Moonlight rested on the domes, and the wind carried a faint floral scent. Cinderella closed another day with quiet gratitude, not gratitude for a perfect life, but for a life safe enough to let her rest. Now, as the story gently comes to a close, you may relax your body. Let your thoughts slow down. Let your breathing become lighter. You are safe. Everything can rest until tomorrow. Sleep well, and may you have a gentle dream.